Hello, welcome back to Chewed Gum. It is January 14th. I am your co-host, Alyssa. I am a sex and relationship coach, and we are joined by the gorgeous, the stunning Promise/Eve.
Hello. Yes, we're still softening the blow of the name change. It's really funny. I'm still getting comments that are like, it says Promise, that's Eve that's hosting this show, like went on some of the clips or whatever. I'm like, I am actually one and the same. That's the same person. But yes, how are you? You look extra beautiful and like radiant, and maybe I'm just like extra thrilled to see you, and it's just your energy is making me really happy. But how are you?
Thank you so much. I'm good. I caught up on sleep, I feel like, for the first time since like Christmas. I feel like I've been like chasing sleep. And so I
feel like I'm still doing that.
Yeah, it's hard. The holidays are really tough, and I'm planning on doing like a little siblings weekend this weekend with my siblings, and then also their partners, and I think my cousin is going to come down, and we were planning on going like a little further out to New Jersey, and then we were like, I think maybe we stay a little closer because we all are still, I think, catching up from the craziness. But
yeah,
I did go into the city, and I have a bunch of clothes that I donated to the victims of the fire in LA. Victims is such like an ick word, but to people who were affected by the fire in LA. Yeah. And there was a huge fire in the Bronx too, which is where I'm from. And
I saw you posted about that. That's wild.
It was so bad. And the craziest part of that fire was the reason that the fire happened is the landlord wasn't putting the heat on high enough. And so it was like 60 degrees in these apartments, which is fucking cold to be inside of your house. And he got like 60 calls to 311, which is like the city line. He got like 60 calls the day before. And so people were using space heaters, and a space heater caught fire. And that's what started the entire fire. Because he didn't want to turn the heat on.
Lovely. Love landlords.
So
it's just good times.
We love.
That's so sad.
It is, and it's unfortunate. I think it's like 75 families are displaced right now. So for that fire, I think I'm trying to organize some. Oh, Bonnie's in the show earlier than usual today.
Hello, Bonnie.
Yes.
She's ready
But
to
I'm trying.
hang.
She is. I'm trying to organize some brand donations. Like I was with Cora earlier today, and they have like feminine products, like menstrual products, and so yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how I can help everyone all the time because it just feels like there's always a literal and hypothetical fire.
Yeah. Yep. Truly. And that's not even in our personal lives. That's just like the world.
Right. Everyone in my personal
Well,
life, you all need to hold it down because there's so much happening. But
right.
you had a birthday this weekend, and I want
I
to know
did.
how it was.
It was nice. And you and Jimmy were so sweet and sent me the sweetest things, literally.
Yeah.
It was delicious. I was
Yay.
eating the little arrangement last night. It was really nice. It was like relaxed. I got to do what I love to do, which is to go out to a restaurant and eat really yummy food. And it was just, yeah, it's snowing here. So there's just
Wow.
snow everywhere. So it's been like a chill, cozy weekend, which is really nice. But yeah, I feel you on the not catching up on sleep thing. I feel like ever since the holidays, I've just been like in over my head. And then just with everything
Yeah.
happening in the news, it feels like everything's, I mean, this is always true. It feels like everything's always a crisis, but there's actually like really wild stuff happening right now. We're gearing up to inauguration. The TikTok ban, it's taken over my social media. That's what everyone's talking about. And then, of course, the fires, which if anybody that watches our show is in California and you're experiencing stuff because of the fires, my heart goes out to you. I know Alyssa, like she said, you posted stuff in your Instagram story today. I saw for people can donate for both fires that you were just talking about. And then I also have in my link tree over on my Instagram, if anybody's interested, a couple of different organizations that I felt comfortable sharing that I think are going to be helpful to some of the people that are suffering because of this. So yeah, I feel like there's all kinds of going on. It's the time of the year where I'm just like, cool, I'm ready for summer. And it's January. So I don't know how do you deal with like seasonal stuff? Does it impact you?
I really have grown, honestly, living in LA for the short period I did made me really appreciate the seasons. So, like, I find winter feels like a time of rest mostly, even though I don't do that. I try and, like, I'm okay with, like, being inside a lot in the winter and whatever, because I know that when the spring comes, for some reason, this past year, I fucking love the spring. It just was like, I don't know. I felt cracked out every day. I would walk outside. I was like, and flowers are going to start blooming because that's just what the earth does. And I was like, am I okay? But it was like really beautiful. And so anyways, so I like the seasons. I think it's nice to be able to, you get to have one long enough to enjoy it, hate it, and then go into the next. And then you enjoy it, you hate it, and then you go into the next. Like if it's sunny every day, it's like, I don't know, not my thing.
I'm trying to be more like that, but I also like my favorite experience was being in Finland all summer when the sun didn't set. I was like, I could get used to
You
this.
liked
I think
that?
I loved it. That was so great. I mean, it was weird to
Wow.
get used to, but I want the sun all the time. Also, this sounds like major just basic bitch problems, but I hate being cold. I hate being cold. I
Oh, I
hate it
hate
so
being
much.
cold.
And
I
I'm
hate
so
it.
scrawny that I'm just always cold. And
Yep.
so wintertime for me, it's just really annoying how, the cold situation. I'm just like sitting everywhere. Like I have this giant coat and I'm just like always sitting around in this giant coat and I'm kind of
Yeah,
over it.
I get that. I am a bitch who's always cold as well. And I could say that about myself because I'm referring to myself. I am literally always cold. I always need multiple layers. It's very annoying and I'm not a fan. That is the one thing that is annoying, which is why I'm okay with in the winter. I'm home. I'm in. I'm sad. And we can all hang out and guess what? You're all coming to my house.
See, I love that. And maybe if we lived in the same neighborhood, I wouldn't have seasonal depression because I would just come over to your house.
Right.
I think I just
Right.
like to be out. Like, I want to be where the people are. I want to be out. I want to see things. I want to do things. But then I don't want to be cold. So all the time I'm just like, I want to go do something, but that would require me to get out of whatever warm space I found with my heated blanket and all my things. And it's just, it's a struggle. So anyways.
What's your favorite
that's my
season?
Problem. I mean, I guess it depends on what country I'm in now, because currently it's summer in Finland because it stays about 70, 72 degrees the whole time. So that's perfect to me. Atlanta, where I'm from in the summer, you can't breathe. It's so hot. It's miserable. So I can't say that. I think fall is what I've always said, because fall in Atlanta is and has been really beautiful. You know, October is nice. It's not too cold. Everything's beautiful. It's great. But I don't know. I think I'm just reminiscing now about like only sun all the time in Finland, and it's what I want. I'm like reading the news here in America, and this is not it. This is not the place for me right now.
It's not it. And I think you are max 3 years from moving to Finland permanently. Max.
We're getting closer every day.
Yeah, if you make it 3, I'll be surprised. I think in like a year you'll be like, yeah, we're kind of planning it. That's my guess.
I mean, I want to always be back and forth. So I'll definitely be there a lot all the time. I feel like a loyalty, like a sense of patriotism to the US also. You know, this is like why I'm an activist here, is because I want things to be better here, but also fuck, man. So we'll see.
I know. Did you hear they banned Pornhub in Florida? In actually most of the southern states.
I saw that. I was like, I guess not in Tennessee. So
yeah, I guess not. Did you check?
I haven't noticed. I think I would by now. So I was like, wait, last I remember, so long ago.
You're like, hold on. Yeah, right.
It was still working.
If I think back, it's one of those moments where I remember. Do you know Liz Plank? I think is her last name. She did the podcast with Justin Baldoni before.
Can we have a dream that you would come on our show someday?
Yeah, I would love that.
I
would love that.
Make that happen, please.
I don't think that's that unreasonable. Honestly, I feel like we could. That feels like that's a DM away.
I also want to hang out with her. Where does she live?
Yeah, I think she's in LA.
You know what city? Okay.
But she
a new goal.
Yeah, I love that goal. Also the Whatever podcast still DMing me, and I haven't opened their messages honestly because I've been a little busy and I haven't had the time. But they still DM me all the time and ask me about going on the show, and I'm like, you guys love to make everyone who goes on your podcast look bad, and I refuse to believe that you in that conversation know more than literally anyone else who's come on there.
Yeah.
But whatever. I shouldn't have even said that. I wonder because now I'm sure I'm going to get another DM.
They're going to message you more. I wonder if I left them on red, I think.
Yeah. And it's annoying because I know they're going to interpret that like they're scared. They're going to like lose. And it's like, no, it's literally not worth driving to goddamn Anaheim to go down there. Please.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. I'd rather go to Disneyland if we're going to do that. So.
Right. If I'm going all the way down there, I want to goddamn Disneyland. But what was I going to say about, we were talking about Pornhub. Oh, yeah. So Liz, she went to...
My camera keeps moving.
Oh, it's on the move. Liz was going to bars ahead of the election and telling guys who said that they were voting for Trump that they were going to lose access to pornography. And like so many of that, like she was filming the reactions of them and it was so funny. And like, I remember at the time, even at that time, thinking like, I don't know that that's actually going to happen. Like, you really think, but here we are.
Yeah. Although I don't know why this part is. I mean, that's why I'm an anti-Christian nationalist. I don't know exactly about the Pornhub ban and all of that and what's behind it. However, I do know that it's set a precedent now for that in general. Because I think I've heard there's some shady things about Pornhub. I prefer ethical porn from ethical sources. We both love cheeks. So
yes, we do.
That's great. Yes. But that's the concern, is that Christian nationalism has an agenda, Project 2025, and now there's a precedent for them to be able to ban things like this. And I think that we're absolutely going to see more of that. Who knows? I mean, we have to get through this TikTok ban thing first. I don't feel like TikTok is actually getting banned. I don't know if I'm in denial, but I've just been like, everyone's posting all this stuff, like, go follow me here. And I'm just like, I really don't think it's going anywhere, guys. But who knows? I mean,
don't think so either.
This is going to be the clip that somebody takes and they put it with the headline that's like TikTok banned and all that. But we'll see. I don't, honestly, like, personally, I don't really care either way. I think it's bullshit, but I don't personally care.
So I don't personally care either, but I am a little worried about what you were just saying, about it setting a precedent for other apps to potentially be banned, or other like things no longer, us not having access to things any longer because we've allowed for the TikTok ban to happen. But I don't know. It kind of feels like there's bigger fish to fry that don't distract me from literally every single thing that I have to do. But it is a huge source of income for people. Like, one of my very good friends makes like quite a bit of money from TikTok every month. And he's like, I'm going to have to figure out, I've relied on that to some degree, and now I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to make that up, which, is unfortunate, especially for people who make their whole living on TikTok. So,
right.
I don't know.
No, I think that's a really good point. And there's a lot of people who, that's the other thing that I'm hearing. A lot of people are saying, I'm getting off Meta for whatever reasons. I fully support anybody getting off social media for any reason. I think that's great. If that's going to help you in life, do it. My problem with the idea of doing it as an act of protest is, number one, it's not going to hurt Zuckerberg. It's going to hurt you more than them if that's the only reason you're getting off of those spaces. And there are a lot of people where that is like the only method that they have to communicate the things that they're communicating that we need to hear. And so until we have some kind of solution, I don't really know that, getting off of these apps as protest is going to do much. It's a cool idea. I get the concept. I love the ideology behind it. Practically, I don't know how that's going to help. And I'm really worried about it hurting small business owners, because that is how so many people sell things. And I don't know. We'll see. Not even from us. Obviously, that's like where I have a lot of my stuff. And I know you too. Like, that's where our platforms are. That's fine. I can like figure stuff out. But I'm just thinking about people where that is it for them. That is like their livelihood. They don't have any other opportunities off of that. And it sucks that we're in a position where we're like having to negotiate with billionaires, basically, with our with our choices. But that's,
I know. And so someone in the comments said, "How is there bigger fish to fry than national security? Why is profit more important?" I don't think that the TikTok ban is a national security thing. Like, we have other, like, why is Shein, an app that's also owned and operated out of China, an app that we can still use? And I'm sure that they collect just as much information as TikTok does. It's not about national security, and it's about wanting to keep a platform that allowed for a lot of free speech, to keep that at bay, which I'm concerned about. But also, I'm sure someone in the US will create an app that will be able to, hopefully have a similar effect. I feel like so much activism has gone on through TikTok that I think has already opened up our eyes in a way that hopefully the people who are feeling very like awake to everything that's happening that they're able to continue that activism whether the platform exists or not. So I don't know.
As I drop my phone over here, all the way, far, far away. I took the case off of my phone, and I don't know, if you use a case on your phone. But I basically feel like I don't recognize it anymore. I don't know how to hold it. I don't know how to type on it when the case is off of it. So anyways, sorry. All that to say, I agree with you. Yeah, we're in wild times. A reminder for anybody that wants to call in, we do have some callers waiting patiently on hold right now, but you can call us at 720-619-2288 if you want to ask questions about sexuality, about deconstruction, if you want to tell us what God you believe in and why, if you want to tell us why we should be following God's word or anything like that. We would love to hear from you. So give us a call. And right now I'm going to awkwardly bend down and try to get my phone. Actually, I'm going to literally try to coerce it over here first. Anyways.
Yeah. Anytime I keep my case not on my phone for any period of time, that is inevitably the time that I literally throw it across the room by accident. So I cannot. Yeah, I can't. Although, do you remember when we're going to take calls in a second. Remember when iPhones first came out, and if you literally breathed on them the wrong way, they would break? I'm glad we're past that.
Oh, yes.
That was so bad.
I've broken quite a few. Yeah, that was really bad.
Oof. Same. Okay, so let's start taking some calls. We actually have 4 of our lines. Our lines are almost full. So if you're trying to get in a call today, I would suggest calling now. Do you have a preference of which call we take first?
No, I'm good with it. They all look great.
Okay.
We never know how these things are going to go, but they sound promising.
No, I know. Okay, so let's take David's call. I'm curious about this one first. Okay. Dave. I said David, but Dave. Hi, Dave. Dave, are you there?
Hello. You might have to tap your phone if you're calling from the web browser.
Yeah.
Because we can't
No,
hear
I
you.
accidentally
There you are.
had myself muted. Muted.
Listen, we all know I do that on this show all the time. So,
yeah. But nice to talk to you again was what I said right when I heard the beep. Unfortunately, you didn't hear that. Before we get into my call topic, before we get into my call topic, have a quick correction that I think you're going to like regarding the Pornhub thing. It is not that Florida banned Pornhub. Pornhub, pardon the pun, pulled out of Florida because Ron DeSantis just signed a bill into law that requires porn distributors to verify age via having the users upload their driver's license and requiring sites like Pornhub to track user data. Pornhub's like, no, we are not going to track our users' data and make them upload driver's license. Fuck you, DeSantis. We're pulling out. If this is what you're going to do, your state can't have porn from us. That is the deal with the Pornhub thing.
Hilarious that's happening while also we have people in Congress pushing to ban TikTok, claiming it's collecting data, but then they're also requiring the collection of data in other circumstances. So it's very much cherry picking. I think that's my problem with the TikTok ban. If they were really like, oh, this is a national security issue and that's what they're going after, and they're able to convince me of that, then there are so many apps they'd have to be banning because we know that this is happening across the board. It's just this one particular concern they have for, I think, completely different reasons, because they have no problem collecting and tracing data. They just want to be the ones to own it. So anyways, thanks for that.
They're selling it as we're trying to protect kids. That's why it's an age verification thing. But the reality is forcing them to track user data like that is just draconian AF, right? So Pornhub's nope, out of that.
Wow. Thank you for that. So, that's really good to know.
Also, I wanted to say Pornhub pulled out of Florida.
Yeah, no, that was perfect.
That's a great phrase.
Perfect. That was perfect. So what else did you
Yeah.
want to talk about today?
Right. So my topic was about how the patriarchy, particularly religious patriarchy, hurts men too. It's toxic for men as well. It's not just misogynistic; it's misandric as well. Or is misandric the right word? I think it is. We're gonna roll with it.
Depends on what you're trying to say. Yeah.
I'm saying the patriarchy hurts men also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have a story that I wanted to share as an example, particularly of my own deconstruction journey and why this shit just didn't work for me very well.
Yeah.
If you've got the time.
Yeah, sure.
Your first caller.
Okay, fantastic. So I was in the Mormon church, like Jimmy, and it's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards this channel. And the church and also the military kind of pushes you to get married early and young. And I made the mistake of getting married at 19 right before pushing out to Iraq. And when I came home to a wife who was pregnant and leaving the church. And I was responsible for neither of those things. And, you know, kudos to her for leaving sooner than I did. I can't be mad at her for that. But, you know, the infidelity thing definitely rubbed me the wrong way for quite a bit. And I even...
that's traumatic on all accounts.
Yeah.
I even fell into some, I want to say, misogynistic beliefs for a time, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't say I hated all women, but I definitely had a chip on my shoulder for a bit. And my mom, a member of the church, recommended that I go talk to my bishop about my problems, my issues, my depression, anxiety, stress. And her answer was always, well, you know, turn to the church. The church has the answers. The church will help you feel better. And okay, I scheduled an appointment with my bishop for a counseling session. And, you know, I waited patiently, evening hours, and showed up and sat down in his office. And it was an hour-long lecture about how I fucked up, how I didn't do enough to keep my marriage together, that I was the head of the household, and, you know, everything that was falling apart, my marriage, my faith in God, all that stuff was my fault, because I wasn't living up to the man that I needed to be. And, man, that just fucking destroyed me. It just shattered me and definitely helped kick my ass on out of the church probably a little sooner. But, you know, the place that I was going to for support was breaking me down for not being good enough. And all I did was go serve my country. There was literally nothing I could do to protect my marriage, to preserve it, to save it. It's not like I could be like, oh, hey, honey, I'm sorry you're feeling bad today. Let me just ask my captain if I could come home real quick. That's not a thing. So it was just something. It was so incredibly. I want to say it was like a head explosion that this man was putting these church patriarchal roles ahead of what I had just gone through. And yeah, and you know, all of this structure fell apart for me because that was the first moment where I started thinking. I mean, I didn't stop believing in God yet, but I believed that because the church had taught me that these men were in this position because they were called there by God, right? My bishop was there because God had put him there. And I just walked out of that room thinking one thing: there is no way that the God I believe in put that man there in that position for me tonight.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you went through that, first of all. That's very traumatic. And so true. I mean, I think patriarchy is equally harmful to men and women, just in very different ways. I was just talking to my partner about this. So many of the things that, we see these high suicide rates amongst men. We see, and especially here where we have religious patriarchy happening and stuff. And so much of that is perpetuated by these, what we call toxic masculinity or whatever, which who knows what I call it, because we're always trying to figure out what I think about toxic masculinity as a term. But these patriarchal values, where men can't go to somebody, like you said, you went for support and instead you were met with, well, basically like toughen up, like pull yourself back up and this is your fault and own it. And, just to a whole nother extreme. It's a lot of extremes and it's a lot of like roles. You have to fulfill this role. Which I think is kind of at the root of a lot of patriarchal issues, is there's this role that you're assigned to, and it doesn't leave room for just being human. But it's like a self-fulfilling thing where just men do it to themselves, they do it to others, and they do it to women. So it's really sad.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing this because so many people have had similar experiences where they're really in their time of need, and the person that is supposed to be able to support them is the one that's shutting the door and kind of like flipping it all onto them. And that experience people have with people even outside of the like religious structure as well, where a lot of the times men are just told to like kind of buck up, figure it out, man up, and that's just not sustainable. And just not reasonable in any way, shape, or form. Like, you are a human being like everyone else, came home to this tragic information and are told to just kind of like buck up and that it's your fault. Like, that doesn't help you grow or feel supported through what that process is like at all. And this is also the part of this process and this whole system that is really frustrating, is that could have turned you into a person who was extremely angry, who was resentful.
It almost did.
Yeah. How did you kind of like circumvent that?
I would say it did for a while. Actually, to be honest, I'm not sure I really circumvented it, more unlearned it by becoming open to new information. Because I did. I got angry. I got bitter. Not just about the religion and the church, but even against women for some time. I can't deny that did happen, but I do feel like I'm trying to learn to be better and to unlearn some of those misogynistic beliefs that I once held, because some of them were from my upbringing, some of them were from my just my military comrades, being around a lot of men who hold a lot of these toxic ideals. They seep in, whether you want them to or not. And it wasn't until I really isolated myself from that and got out of the military that a lot of that stuff really started changing. When I could separate myself from those echo chambers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, between the religious upbringing at home and then also being in the military, I can imagine that you had a lot of experience with the patriarchy and how it can shape how people process things. That's like a double whammy there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you came out on the other side, which is amazing.
It's I'm definitely glad I did. I have a lot of good reasons to. I did date somebody who was a super feminist for a time that really, helped me see things differently than I had before. And then also, I have a daughter, and goddamn if I don't want to make sure that she grows up in a world where she doesn't have to deal with that shit. different things happen in your life. They change your motivations. They change your worldviews.
Yeah, for sure. And still, you should feel proud of, I'm sure, the work that you had to do to pull yourself through to be the person that you are. There are plenty of people who have daughters who are not able to have a shift in their perspective because that's the harder choice. And you chose every day, moment to moment, to make the harder choice. And so you should feel, I know maybe in your mind it might feel like I'm doing bare minimum, like we should all be like this, and I get that.
I do. It does feel like the bare minimum, yeah.
Yeah, but you being the person you are contributes to us having more balance in our society. So even if it does feel like bare minimum, it really isn't, and it will mean a world of difference to the daughter that you raise and to all the women that you come across and really everyone that you come across in the future. I think you should feel very proud of yourself.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that coming from you. And both
course.
of you ladies, thank you for your time.
Of course. Thanks so much for calling again, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Have a good rest of your night.
Have a good rest of your show.
Thank you.
Oh, I love his laugh. He has such a joyful laugh.
I know. I'm seeing, of course, as happens, we don't have any theist callers.
I know.
I think they're scared. Also, I don't remember if I've said this on air before. I know when we first started doing the show together, you were always like, oh, like let Eve or Promise, take the theist call. Like that's her domain. You are kicking ass in those conversations. You definitely
Am I?
Yes, you are. You're crushing it. I can just sit back and just be like, cool, Alyssa's got this. So I think they're getting a lot of scared.
That's really funny. Well, I think my whole thing is like, I can't come toe to toe with people who know the Bible really well. Like that is like, girl, that shit backwards and front. And that is amazing and so helpful when we have those calls. And I feel like my role in those calls is mostly to just like call out bad behavior because
which is really helpful.
I'm just gonna I've made it my mission to gentle parent everyone through through their bad behavior, I guess, until they make me mad and then I yell at them.
Yeah. I was just watching because it was getting a lot of views. Remember that call we had with May, who we don't get a lot of women theists, and she had called in, and it ended up being kind of a sad call because I hope she's all right. That was like a interesting situation. Yeah. But she like made some diss about me getting married, and you were like, we had been calm and patient and listening, and you were like, you go, that's rude. And I was like, that is why I love Alyssa, because that was a very relevant thing to point out in that moment. So
it was really rude.
No. But I mean it though, like in the conversations, you are so good at also just tracking the logic. Like you don't have to know the Bible to be like, okay, well tell us why we should think this though. And you're kicking ass. So maybe that's why we're not getting any theists, is because you guys are scared. Maybe. Although I also want to point out that Alyssa and I are always very nice. We love having these conversations.
Yes.
I was watching another caller where we talked to this guy who had just called us a bitch in the video before. or in the show before. So it's like, we put up with a lot over here. We're just like, okay, you can, whatever you need to say, if you're feeling big feelings, you can say that. Now let's try to have a conversation.
Right. Exactly. You can feel your big feelings here. This is a safe space for big feelings, and we will still keep our head I think it's interesting to be like that in a space where so often men think that women are the most emotional, which I think is like the silliest thing in the whole world, to think that any gender as a whole is more emotional than the other. Like, what are we even talking about? But like, women get stereotyped as being more emotional, and then we have these men who are so angry and have such big feelings that they literally can't communicate a point to save their life. And then we gentle parent them into demonstrating their point because they made the call. And, you know, I think that that's a nice space for us to live in.
I love it.
You
I'm
know?
so here for it. On that note, reminder that super chats of $5 or more, we will read at the end of the show, of course. And if you want to get your call in, now is the time to do it before we close lines. The number is, I don't know anything, 720-619-2288. I'm just like looking off into space thinking the number is going to pop up when it's right there on the screen.
That's
Anyways.
so
But yeah, I'd love to get a couple more calls in before the show's over, but we have some people already holding, so.
Yes. And also, I don't know if you guys heard. Actually, are we allowed to say? It's on the Patreon.
Oh, yes. Okay, I saw it flash on the screen. So I think it was.
So I guess it's
the special announcement. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it announced? Are we allowed to say this? Okay, you do it. And then
yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So the line now has a podcast, and the main 3 hosts are Promise, Jimmy, and myself. It starts January 20th. I'm so excited. I also feel like a little nervous because it starts January 20th and we have to record our first episode yet. So like that makes me, like,
that's not relevant.
Not relevant because it's not your problem, and also it'll be fine. And I'm so excited. It's also like very us to find a way to spend more time together and then film it.
I was about to say, is this for the people or is this for us? It's a mutually beneficial situation that's happening here. We get to hang out. We get to talk. I think it's going to be super fun. I'm really excited.
It's going to be really fun. And I'm excited that it's us two and Jimmy, because I feel like when we have our like FaceTimes and we're just on the phone with each other, the conversation goes literally every which way. Like, putting that in a space where other people are going to be listening to it is going to be, and also I don't think ever had a phone call that was less than like an hour and a half.
No. I was thinking yesterday our conversation was so unhinged in so many different directions. Like we did not stay on topic. Luckily the show is going to be structured because we do all have that side of us also that wants to like do things, not the right way, but in a way that is enjoyable for everybody. So there's going to be structure. It's going to be fun. Jimmy does these things well. And so it's going to be great. However, on our phone calls, when we're not, recording, we just go down so many random trails and talk about the craziest stuff. Correct. And we always take it to like the furthest degree possible in the conversation. Like if you, as you did, Alyssa had to like step away for a second. She chimes back in on like, I don't even remember what we were saying. Something super unhinged. Like everything is just absolutely unhinged at all times. And we just say wild things. Yeah. And I love it.
I'm trying to remember what it was that I like zoned out, or I was like answering a text or something. And then I came back in because like Jimmy said something crazy. And I was like,
really crazy.
What are we talking about? What are we talking? Yeah. But it'll be on all podcast streaming platforms. I do believe it will be video as well as audio. Yes. And it's not just for Patreon members. Like it'll be on, I think, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I assume. And it's going to be so much fun. And Jimmy's podcast, I think, is still going to continue, as far as I know, for at least for a little while longer. I don't know if he's going to do it like super long term. I know he's trying to like shift his projects around. But yeah, so Jimmy will be on this one and it'll be so fun. And it'll be primarily the 3 of us, but then we'll be able to like have other hosts.
Yeah, there will be other hosts from the line all the time. As you guys know, we're not always available. So the 3 of us, I think one of us will always be around for an episode, and then there will be other hosts. So I think that's going to be so fun. And I think, if I remember correctly, we're going to bring in outside guests sometimes as well. So that's, you guys have people you've been wanting us to chat with. You might get to hear that finally. It'll be exciting. Yeah. We also have announcements for the week. We have the hang up tomorrow night with Matt Dillahunty, and guest is to be announced or decided. I don't know which. And then we have TACIS on Thursday with Arden and Josie. And then I actually think, am I making this up, or is it's not on my list, but I feel like there's a show on Friday night. Maybe I'm making this up. Hold on, I'm going to look because now I want to know. I don't know how to do anything on my phone.
15?
Anyways, no, that's tomorrow. So I just don't know
I don't
what I'm
see
talking about.
a show on Friday.
Okay, ignore that. There's not a show on Friday. Sunday is the Sunday show at 2:00. It's going to be Forrest and myself. Always love doing the show with Forrest. It's going to be a fun time. If you have been debating some theists in comment sections, please encourage them to call us on Sunday with whatever God it is they believe in and their evidence for that God. And that evening, we'll have the After Dark show with Matt Dillahunty, guest to be announced or decided. Skeptalk on Monday. Tuesday will be Chewed Gum, of course. However, surprise hosts, because Alyssa and I will not be there for that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll be something great. I don't know who it is yet. I don't know if you know.
Of course.
I don't.
It'll
be great. But that's our announcement.
And then, yay! It'll be a great week of great shows. And I know that people were wanting. They were like, oh God, now I can't remember. There were two people that the chat was requesting to be hosting together when we were not here. And if anyone remembers who that was.
I think it was it Shannon Q and Erica? Because I shipped that.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it is.
Real hard. So we'll put in a good word. We'll see. I don't know. I feel like maybe one or both of them everybody's been taking time off because of the holidays and crazy schedules and all that. So, but yes, it will be somebody amazing. Bottom line.
Always is.
I don't know why I don't start with my hair up every time, because at this point I always end up putting it up because I just like keep playing. It's a whole thing. It's an ordeal. Well, can we have scrunchies made? Can we have like merch? How cute would that be?
Scrunchies. I love a scrunchie. That would be great.
Okay, I'm gonna also put in a word for that.
I got these little bang situations. Got a little bang.
Maybe that's why you're like extra. Like I'm noticing, because it's framing your face. I love it.
Thank you. They looks really terribly annoying. Very annoying, though. I think I'll get used to them. This is still
growing from me taking kitchen scissors to my hair, so it happens.
Been there. Not that long ago.
It happens.
Oh my God! See, okay, people are loving a scrunchie idea. Someone in the chat said me with short hair. I would love a scrunchie.
Okay,
Jimmy's
you can wear them around your head.
Yeah, and Jimmy's hair is long enough. He could use a scrunchie.
Okay, we have to do the scrunchie thing.
I think that's a great idea. Okay, what call should we take next? I picked our last one, so you get to pick this one.
Let's chat with William. Let's see.
Amazing.
Hello, William. You are on with Promise and Alyssa. How are you this evening?
Hey, I'm okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you.
So it was just to ask both of you questions. And the question was, do you believe in something without any evidence or proof? The same way people believe in the Bible, God.
Do we believe in something without evidence? Similarly to, so I can't think, like right off the top of my head, I can't think of anything I believe in that's like a claim anywhere near as big as the claim of a God that I believe without evidence. But sure, all the time, like on a regular basis, I guess, but even still, I feel like there's evidence. For example, if Alyssa tells me that her mom is downstairs right now, I'm going to believe her. I don't technically have evidence, but what I do have is experience with Alyssa to know that generally the things she's told me have turned out to be true. I've never experienced a lie from Alyssa. I also have the experience of her telling me other claims like that later on do get proven in some way. Also, it's not that big of a deal if she's wrong. So, her throwing that out there, it's like, I don't really need a lot of evidence to believe that. The stakes are really low. If she told me that her mom was downstairs in my house right now, I would not believe it, because even though I want to believe Alyssa, I would be very confused. I'd be like, no, because you don't know where I'm at right now. Why is your mom here? This doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I can't think of, I don't believe in I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in astrology. I don't believe in any of these extraordinary claims because I'm a skeptic. More than I'm an atheist, the reason I am an atheist is because I'm a skeptic. And so I don't believe extraordinary claims without evidence to back them. But that's my answer. I don't know about Alyssa.
I feel similarly. Sometimes when it's low stakes things, I'm just less bothered by them. I just don't even think about it that much. If a friend of mine were to tell me that people feel more confident when they wear the color red, I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. I guess that might make sense. Maybe there's something about the color red that makes people feel bold. I don't know. And I wouldn't think twice about it. And I would think, you know what? Yeah, maybe. And move on with my day. But when it has to do with something that is so big, and so it involves so much more than, oh yeah, that sounds plausible, and move on with my day. It's so much more involved than that. And that's where I feel like things shift for me. Does that make sense, William?
Yes, that's a very good explanation.
Yeah, it's, if it's something small, I'm down to be a little silly about it. But religion and God is so loaded. There's so much that is associated with it all that it's impossible for me to just be fully bought in as it is now.
So the reason I was asking the question, I asked myself the same question. I believe in something without any evidence or proof, the same way people believe in God in the Bible. And I came up with two examples. So the first example was life in the universe. It's just the size of the universe. I find it difficult to believe that we are the only life in the universe, considering the size of the universe. I've not got any evidence or proof, but I do believe. Yeah. So that was an example. So there was another example. So what do you think of that one?
That's a good example, because I also believe that we're not the only things.
Sure, and I think that we all have, fairly decent reasons to think that that's probably true. But how much does that belief influence your daily life is what I would ask. And would you, bet on that? If somebody said, look, we're about to find out if you're right or wrong, how much are you willing to risk based off of that claim? Would you dedicate your entire life to that belief? And how much does it impact your day-to-day life and the decisions you make and how you act and how you behave?
I completely agree. No, that much, to be honest with you. But it was an example of something I maybe believe in without any evidence or proof. So that was just one example. But there's another example. Yeah. And have both of you ever experienced deja vu?
Deja vu?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
And can you explain what happened when you experienced deja vu?
Oh, what is deja? So for me, deja vu is something let's say right now while we're going through this call, if I were experiencing deja vu, there would be part of myself that's like, I swear this has happened already. And I swear I could tell you what's going to happen next. I can't really, but that's the feeling that comes on.
Yeah, I feel like with deja vu, it's so hard for me to actually confirm that I have had this thought or this memory before, that many times I am having deja vu and I'm just thinking, I don't think I actually have experienced this before, but it just feels like I have.
So that's basically the same as everybody. When everybody experiences deja vu, they get a feeling as if they've been there before, or they're experiencing the event before. So do you know the reason why, or do you know why we experience deja vu? What actually happens when we experience deja vu?
Well, we haven't really figured that out yet. The theories are that there's maybe like something's out of sync with how our brain is processing something, kind of like a glitch in our thought process or in our memory. But as far as I know, we don't have a definitive answer as far as what that is.
So could I maybe explain to you maybe my explanation of why we experience deja vu? It's going on to actually something else, but if it's okay, I can explain this first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the reason we experience deja vu, for most people, when we experience deja vu, we get a feeling as if we've been there before, or we've experienced the event for a second time. Well, the first time they actually experienced the event, and this is why most people can't explain why we experience deja vu. The first time they experienced the event was in a dream that they did not remember when they woke up, but the dream was actually stored in their subconscious memory. So when people actually experience deja vu, it's their brain actually retrieving a subconscious memory.
Is this what your claim is, like what you believe? Because as far as I know, we don't have anything proving that at all. So you're saying this is what you think it is?
It definitely, and I'll explain kind of why. So the reason is, so it's a subconscious memory. So when people experience deja vu, they get the feeling like they've been there before. It feels like a memory, but they can't actually explain it because they've no recollection of actually having that memory. So what's actually happening is they're actually experiencing that event in time for a second time. The first time was in a dream that they didn't remember when they woke up. And can I explain my evidence for this?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear evidence for that, because for me, there's no evidence of that. I have deja vu, and there's no reason to think I had a dream about that before when I didn't even have the thing. You know, there's no way I would have dreamed something that I had never seen with my own eyes before like that. But yeah, what's your evidence for that claim?
I will explain my evidence for this, and as I say, some people might be able to relate to this because I can't be the only person that's actually experienced this. So I think when I was about maybe 21 years old, I woke up from a dream, and for 2 seconds I actually remembered the dream specifically. And after about a couple of minutes, it completely went out of my head. So I will explain to you actually what happened in the dream. I was actually sitting on a sofa. I turned to the left, and there was a girl with long red hair. She was about 20 years old. And when I looked actually in front of me, there was a gay man sitting in a chair. I didn't know any gay people at that time, and that's why I found the dream so strange. But I actually remembered that dream when I actually woke up. So it was about 6 months later, I started seeing a girl with red hair, but I still didn't think any of the dreams, completely went out of my head. She actually said to me one time, it was about 2 weeks after we were dating, can you come to my uncle's house? I says, aye, no problem. Went to her uncle's house, walked in the flat, sat down on the sofa, and I get a really, really, really strong sensation, like feeling a deja vu. When I actually looked to the left, it was a girl with the long red hair, and when I actually looked ahead, it was her uncle who was sitting in the chair, and he was actually the gay person that was in my dream for 6 months previous. So then that led to I know it sounds
Sorry, go ahead.
crazy, but so then that led to the question, but how can you actually be dreaming about stuff that's not already happened?
Right. So I hear from what I understand, the only thing that you've convinced me of is that maybe you one time dreamed something and then it happened. To me, that's not evidence for deja vu in general, because why would you remember the dream that time and then forget it every other time? That just isn't evidence for me. But my other thing I would ask you is, did you record that dream that you had and then 6 months later experienced in real life, or did you just happen to remember that you had that dream before? Did you have anything?
When I woke up from the dream, I specifically remembered the dream straight away when I woke up for the dream. And it was 6 months later.
But the way our memories work is not very well. It's so interesting to go learn about memories. It makes me feel crazy because you find out that we are so bad at remembering things, but our confidence in the things that we remember is just amazing. We really think we remember things well, and something that can have just happened, we already misremember. And then when we experience that memory again, we misremember it again, and things kind of just get lost, kind of like a game of telephone over time when we are remembering things. And so my concern about dreams and trying to use a dream as as a piece of evidence, unless we have recorded that down or have a witness like where we told them this thing, I can't even know, because I've experienced similar things where I'm like, oh, I had a dream about this one time. And then I think, like, did I really, or was it kind of similar, or is my brain playing an entire trick on me where it thinks I had this dream one time, but I have no evidence that I actually even had that dream. So it's interesting. It's cool. I'm not saying, oh, you're crazy or anything like that. I just think brains are so fascinating and they do weird things. And none of that for me is evidence that, deja vu is really a dream, like that we're having these premonitions. That's taking it to another extreme without anything to back it. When to me, what makes the most sense is what a lot of scientists hypothesize, or neuroscientists say, that they believe is happening, which is kind of like a glitch in our memory where we think like our brain isn't processing it in the same amount of time that we usually process something. So it feels like we're remembering something that's already happened when we're just experiencing life like we always do. But that's my thoughts. I don't know. Alyssa, what do you think about that?
I feel similarly. I think it's a hard thing when we are telling, like, sharing anecdotal evidence, because there's no way to prove that experience, and so we're just doing it based on like the trust in your story, and that maybe it's hard for us to do with a person that with really anyone, but it's hard to do especially when we are not collecting that information. So I think if you have vivid dreams regularly, you should start writing them down, and maybe you will be able to have some concrete proof there. But it's hard to say. Like Eve has used the example before that if she says there's a pink unicorn in the corner of the room and no one can see it, but I can see it, you would have to just kind of trust me and believe that it's there. And we use that argument for faith and for trusting without seeing in general. But I think that it kind of applies here too, because we would have to like fully buy in and trust in your experience, which, while it is true for you, because we are not you and we did not experience it and there's no way to prove it, it's hard for us to use that as evidence.
I completely agree. And that's why it's difficult for me, as I say, to provide proof that I actually had a dream and that's actually what happened. But the point of the deja vu thing was I strongly believe that everything in the universe has already happened. We've just not reached the point in time to experience these events.
Ooh, that's spooky.
I mean, I have these kind of conversations with friends all the time, and it's fascinating. It's fun to think about. But at the end of the day, I can't, live my life as though something is true that I don't have evidence to back it. And so that's why these conversations to me are fun and it's cool to think about and speculate, but we have to be honest and note that all we're doing is speculating. And oftentimes there's evidence to the contrary of some of the things that we think, or there's just like an entire puzzle piece missing that we don't know enough about to even fully speculate, because we're still figuring out, we barely know anything about what we perceive as time and how it impacts us and all of that. So it's interesting. It's cool. I have to base my life around the reality that I do know, and hold everything else loosely and with skepticism. So, but I appreciate the call. I appreciate the interesting conversation, and yeah, keep thinking about these things. It's all interesting.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course. Thanks, William. Bye-bye.
Thank you, William.
Yeah, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Fun.
Yeah, I think that's just, it's very fun to think about. It's just not, can't base my life around it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting.
Caller?
Sure. It's interesting brunch conversation, I would say. We do have some theists, and I think that we should... Actually, do we only have one? I think we only have one.
Yeah. Eduardo.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Also, William's accent was lovely. Scotland is one of my favorite places to visit, and I one day want to have a Scottish husband. So, William, if you have any single friends, you let me know. Okay, should we bring in our theist
Alyssa and
caller?
Promise go to Scotland 2025. That's our new...
Stop it. Yuka needs to come because I feel like he'll help me find somebody.
He's a really great wingman for stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely.
He'll be great.
We'll all go.
He'll be great.
We need to just go over to Europe and it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's bring in Eduardo.
Amazing.
Eduardo, you
Hello.
are on the line. How are you?
Fine, I'm fine. All right. Hanging in there.
Great. So what did you want to talk about today?
I saw the book of the program, and it's something that I think about a lot, actually. I've been, it's a long story. My life has been a little hard. Anyway, so what I think is this: what we should follow that Rice said, that actually summarized what it was before there was a church. It's love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do to others as you'd like them to you, and don't judge. I think we should follow those three, at least.
Well, sorry, what was the last thing you said?
Even if you're not Christian, that judge not, lest he shall be judged.
Oh, judge not. Okay, gotcha.
They do not judge. Yeah. And
yeah,
because,
I mean,
if you yeah.
No. Sorry, you go ahead. I interrupted.
Bit of a delay, but no, I mean, because those three, they actually, even if you follow any religion, if you go by those edicts, you are. I mean, you might accidentally harm someone, but in fact, you are not good. It's almost like not quite, but almost like the laws of robotics by Asimov. Almost like that. But if everybody decided to respect each other or be open to each other, although there's something that I think it's very important to register, is that unfortunately even those we we are going to have to be careful because our society is not ready for that yet. We are still too much, and these days it's getting worse. We are making up tribes. It used to be that we were isolated from each other, but now that we aren't, kind of open mind, the minds are closing, and they try lines are drawn, and I worry about that. And if those three principles were followed, we would have way less of that division that we have nowadays.
I agree that those are good values in general, but I don't think that we need the tie-in of Jesus Christ being the person who taught them to us. Like, those ideas have existed for long before Jesus was teaching them. So I think those ideas are great, and many people who allegedly follow the teachings of Jesus don't also practice those things. So
yes, exactly.
Well, and my problem, Eduardo, is that some of these things are so vague and also can be said so much better that you have to apply so much critical thinking anyways to make them worth following, that it's like, why do we need it to come from the Bible? For example, we were just talking about this with, I think it was with Matt, this idea of treat others as you want to be treated. If I treat my husband how I want to be treated, sometimes that's going to be great and sometimes it's not, because we're both really different in certain ways, especially culturally. And so, like, culturally, people often want to be treated differently, so I'd rather treat somebody how they want to be treated rather than how I would want to be treated. Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Anyway, a lot of these things that Jesus said, we can already go ahead and say better. Loving your neighbor. That's great until your neighbor is trying to break into your house over and over and over again and, causing property damage. And then, obviously I'm being very literal here with an actual neighbor, but, then you have to set some boundaries. Jesus also talked about forgiving and how important it is to forgive people and turn the other cheek and all of that. Well, when you tell that to somebody who's actively being abused, then you set them up to continue that cycle of being abused, instead of saying like, hey, actually, no, set some boundaries. Jesus didn't talk about that. Jesus wasn't like, hey, it's really important that you approach these things where you figure out, is this a healthy situation for me? Should I leave? Make sure that you have consent, autonomy, all these things that now we know that. I know, I'm sure you know that. But this supposed ancient wisdom wasn't very wise. It was really basic, and we can already say it so much better. So that's my pushback. I agree with you that the best things we can take away from some of the things Jesus said are helpful. But how far has that gotten us since Christianity has been around? As Alyssa pointed out, not very far. So,
well, I don't know if we would be farther if not for Christianity. That's the kind of thing that's hard to evaluate, because you can see lots of evil that were done in the name of God, lots of good that were done in the name of God, but that's not even the main problem with this. We can do without. Perhaps nowadays we can do without. What we do without before? And I ask that because before we had this kind of a we can scatter as humans all over the earth without contact, and when those tribes got together, it got complicated, because it's not only we talk about the genocide of the Europeans towards the Native Americans, which is horrible. I'm from Brazil. It was even sort of worse here. Actually, no. The United States was worse. But what we did here is we have preserves, and they are isolated to preserve their culture. But nobody asks them. They like to be isolated. They don't know what's up. I don't know what is worse, but we have those things. But what we don't realize is that the same people were doing the same kind of thing before we arrived, except the problem that we were too efficient. They brought disease. I'd say we, but I cannot even say we because I'm half Portuguese and half Indian. Although I don't know my what's supposed to be my tribe, native Brazilian, because it got lost in the shuffle. But I mean, unfortunately, we were only the more efficient at doing that. But everybody was doing that. So I don't know if we didn't have the Christianity. I think the Catholic Church more mess up than help. But at the same time, I was talking to somebody else in another program because I was talking about this. Because religions have dogmas, and science is too stable. And I say science is too stable. It's great. It's a feature. But unfortunately, many people are replacing the faith in a religion for a faith in science, which defeats the whole purpose of the free thinking. So I don't know where we would be. I don't know if it would be farther. I don't know if it would be.
Yeah, I think.
Not
Eduardo,
I think the first stage of civilization.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow.
In the first stage. Exactly. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to follow what you're saying, but from what I'm grasping, I understand wanting to look back and, this question of was religion more or less helpful? And there's all kinds of books out there on this and interesting thoughts. What I care about is it helpful now and moving forward, or is it decreasing well-being? And I think believing things that are not true, that we don't have reason to believe are true, that in and of itself, I think can be harmful to people. Then we look at the impact that religion has on a lot of people. We look at religious trauma, which people are studying more and more now, thankfully, which is a very real thing that impacts people's brains. And so I think that's where my concern ends up is I can't, what has happened. Now, what do we do to move forward? Because all we can do is speculate about the past. We can't say, well, 100% for sure, everything would have been 10 times better if there was no religion or this specific religion, or it would have been way worse if we had this or that. We can speculate all day long, but what I care about is looking at what we know now and deciding moving forward what's going to be better for well-being for people. And for me, the Bible doesn't play a role in that, and belief in a God doesn't play a massive role in that. I do think there are some people where this belief is something that they cannot let go of, and that's what it takes for them. And because we're not doing a good job feeding and clothing and sheltering people, we're going to keep seeing that, and as long as we ignore poor people. But in general, I think the progression of society is going to happen the less false beliefs we have. And I don't think it's fair to say like faith in science is what we're pushing for. I don't want somebody to have faith in science. I want science to tell us more about the world and us go, cool, I'm really glad we know this now, so that we don't have to continue sitting here saying, I don't know. It's cool to say, actually, we have a pretty good idea, and it's this. Otherwise, I do want to keep saying, I don't know.
No. Let me kind of like I thought I misheard your question in a maybe I wasn't that clear. I didn't say that you were pushing science like that because I admire your organization because of the free thinking. Although I'm not an atheist, I like that idea, the free thinking, the separation from church to state, especially because the separation from church to state was actually for us to have freedom of religion, and but that's not bad. But more or less, the communication in general, it's kind of like it's getting to that point. I remember when you had COVID here, there was a governor who was importing vaccines, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, it's maybe it's too early, or especially to say that. Then he came up with, oh, but it's 100% efficacious, and many people, and were like, oh yeah, then why? He's like, no, because of the size of the vaccine. And lots of people believe that. I'm not saying that you are doing that. I think you are actually undoing some of the damage that was done in this case, because science was started to be sold as a new faith because it was easier for people to understand. It was easier for it's a, so. And the problem is that we ended up getting people believing in weirder and weirder conspiracy theories, because if you trust in science, like a faith, it changes. It's good that it changes, but if you have faith on it, it changes, and then you don't know what to do. And then there's a guy here who said there was a 150 billion years city in the Amazon, and lots of people believe him. Why? Because it's science. You see what's
I
being
think,
done? I'm not saying that
Eduardo,
you are doing that. You're doing exactly the opposite.
Right, I understand. But what I think is happening here is you're calling something science that it sounds like I'm trying to follow the conversation, but if somebody is saying like, oh, you should take this based off of faith, and they're calling it science, but then it's wrong, then it's not science.
Yeah.
Unless it ends up correcting itself.
I know.
So nobody's advocating for having faith in science. You would be correct if something isn't accurate, if it's not just something we've observed in reality, that's what science is helping us do, is just observe reality, and observe the natural world, which is all we have, because it's, as far as we know, that's all that there is. So if somebody is I didn't understand exactly what you're saying, but if somebody is pushing for somebody to just believe something and then claiming it's science when it's actually not, then that's an entire separate issue. And that's, obviously nobody's advocating for that. There are people that are advocating for that, but if you're a skeptic, you're not advocating for that. So, but yeah, that's my final thoughts before we have to move on to our next caller. Alyssa, do you have anything before we get to our next ones? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Muted. Can I make a disclaimer really fast? Because
yeah.
All right. So I'm not saying that you are doing it. I actually say that you are not doing it, but it was done. We have a congressional here in Brazil of the COVID, and that the things that people were saying that was science, maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, but the way that they it's almost like I heard a senator saying we have to have faith in science.
I would agree that's a silly statement. Nobody should have faith in anything. I don't think that faith is a valuable tool for existing in reality. So I would agree with that. But I think that's all I've got on this call. Alyssa, anything for you before we move on?
No. Thank you so much, Eduardo. Appreciate you calling.
Thanks, Eduardo.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys too.
Have a good night.
The call, sorry.
All good. Yeah, I don't want to have faith in science. And I don't think that's something that I know of anybody that's pushing for. But also I know that maybe there is a language barrier happening. And so maybe certain words, you know, when you take them through translation, they start meaning different. I mean, they do start meaning different things. So maybe that's part of it. But you want to pick our next call?
Sure. Let's take Brandon's call because he's been waiting since the beginning of the show. So I'm going to pull Brandon in. Brandon, you are on the line. Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hello. Yeah, hi. I'm Brandon. I actually just heard about this show like a few days ago. I think a clip came up where you talked with a very delightful gentleman named Alexander, and in a totally not cringe-worthy video.
I think
I'm sure.
I totally denounced the pause several times.
I think he's the one that called me a bitch and then claimed that he was calling a cockroach a bitch or something. That was a weird.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
I got secondhand embarrassment a little bit.
Me too.
But just the context before I bring up my topic. I'm Brandon. I guess I'm a young man. I'm from DC, and ideologically, I'm not like a. Besides my topic, I'm actually not like right at all. I came out of like the Bernie Sanders 2016 movement. Yeah, that's, I guess, context. But the topic I wanted to bring up, because I listened to some other of your episodes of your show, and there's a lot of this concern about the direction of men, especially young men, which includes me. And I think there is not just here, but like I see it other places too, an overgeneralization about issues with men, about them being bad. And I think it's in some places wrong, but also self-defeating. And so that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard when we're doing anything on the internet because we have to kind of like, for the purpose of brevity, a lot of times things get generalized. But I'd love to know more about what you think is harmful, how you think it's harmful. Just more information about your thoughts would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to add on real quick too. Right off the bat, I can agree with you in that I think, and this is just a general thing that humans do. We generalize, and we see it on all sides of the political aisle. But I wish that we spent more time talking about what is the issue, what is the cause of the either whether it's poor behavior that statistically comes more from men pertaining to a certain act, whatever it may be, or whether it's a certain like mental health issue that we see more of, whatever it may be that we're actually trying to address. I do wish that we spent more time talking about that. By we, I mean society, than just like men suck. I understand what's being attempted to be said when that happens, and sometimes we're hyperbolic when we say these things because that's the best way to communicate about it in that given moment. And it's become really trendy to also say things in extremes, fuck God and like fuck men and all these things. And like, right. I can get behind those statements as far as the sentiment behind them. But obviously, if we sit down and talk about these things, I just don't think a God exists. And I actually really love men a lot. And some of my favorite people in my life are men. I am living in a world where continually there are negative things happening because of things that have been perpetuated by men and women that happen to come from men. So anyways, I hope that made any bit of sense, but that's kind of my position on
that. It might be more so actually a messaging problem than a substantive disagreement. I mean, there's probably some there too, but so a lot of times we're talking about these things. We say that, when men are facing issues or whatnot, it's like, oh, they're just having trouble facing accountability for their actions. They're toxic and bad. They're feeling bad because they're not getting what they think they're systemically entitled to or something like that. They created the problems they're facing. And I think that's wrong on several fronts. And not to say that there aren't issues, like you brought up, there are definitely issues. I think about them. I especially think about them if I like talk with my little sister about things. Like there's a lot of shitty guys out there. But when you're like, if you're like me, you're my age or you're younger, and you're hearing people talk about things as if you created a society-wide problem, and you're like, I just got here, man. Like, what did I like?
Yeah.
Why are you lumping this all together? Or you're saying men created the problem? It's like, well, we're in a society where, okay, the top 1%, most of them might be men, but the rest, 99%, a lot of those dudes are men too, and they were screwed over too. And so it's this lumping people into this monolith. And then even if you don't mean it, the message comes across as, oh, there's this one side that has a disdain for me. So I understand why people might go, like, I know a lot of concern on your show was people going right or first Trump or whatnot. And I'm like, I make my decisions on like policy and whatnot, because also it's kind of what I do is more politically oriented. So I know he's like a fraud in various aspects. But I can't lie, like sometimes when I listen to people talk on one side versus the other, I'm like, I get the emotional response. You're like, screw you. I'm going with people who actually at least pretend they care about me. So there's a big messaging problem. And a lot of the solutions, when you talk about it, it seems like people don't talk to the people they're saying they're concerned about. Like, you're not talking about like maybe a little bit more masculine men. It's a lot of people with a different perspective who are talking about stuff I don't know if they know. I can get more into that, but I don't want to rant.
Well, I'll say I know that a lot of people who watch the show and like are in the chat don't agree with me always on this, but I've said before that I really think the only way that we're going to get out of the situation that we're in with the men that are the ones we're talking about is through compassion, and it's not going to happen if we are continuing conversations of like, fuck men. That's not going to take the men who are, like, for lack of a better term, that's not going to take the shitty men and make them less shitty. That's for sure. And so
also, online people are not the same as real people. People often see the comments and like, that's all of them. It's like, no, those are loud online people. They're a problem, but
yeah,
remember that.
For sure. I mean, the thing is that we don't know who those people who online, who they are in our real lives. Like, I could be interacting with a person who acts like a jerk online and have no idea, and I could interact with them every day, you know, and it's a tough thing because when women have, or really any non-man have issues to take up with men, many times it is a safety concern, and it feels way bigger than hurting someone's feelings by lumping them into the group. And so that's why I think you get like a very emotional reaction, a very intense reaction when you try to have conversations like this, because it's like we're you know, fearful of our lives, and it's like, why should people care about hurting Brandon's feelings? However, I also am very much aligned with, I think we're not going to be able to move forward without being compassionate towards each other. And that means compassionate towards you and compassionate towards the shitty men. It's just like, unfortunately, I think the way that it's going to end up being, if we do want to keep safety as like kind of the forefront of what we're doing. I could be wrong. That's going to be my ideology, and I understand that not everybody's going to want to do that. But I don't know. I don't see a way forward. I think the 4B movement, I think, is going to be a mess if we try and do something like that here. Like, if we are just continuing to attack each other, then I don't really understand how that moves anyone forward.
Yeah, I think this goes back. I think last week we were talking about it, where for me, I believe in having compassion in one-on-one conversations and like generally toward individuals, like individual compassion and all of that. But I cannot move forward in life, and I understand why a lot of other women can't, without acknowledging why there is a general distrust and distaste toward the concept of men, as far as what that means socially right now. Because if you look at the statistics, 50% of women are that are homicide victims, it's because of their partner, as opposed to that's 5% of men that are homicide victims experience that from a partner. The rest is usually from other men. So you look at something like that. You look at 1 in 6 women are sexually assaulted. You look at 65% of women say that they're regularly harassed when out in public by men. So there's all these things where it's like, you do have to acknowledge that. Like when something is a systemic issue, then it is going to come out. And I think I agree with Alyssa, and I also think that it's important to keep perspective. And that's what I would ask men who consider themselves to be feminists, who consider themselves to want equality, who consider themselves to, be on the same team as far as people that want to progress in society and have equality and all of that. Please keep the perspective of these very real statistics of what women face caused directly by people that are men. And keep that in mind when you hear these things. I understand. I'm not one that walks around that's like, fuck men, I hate men and all this stuff. Just that's not my style. I don't really say that about much of anything at all. But I understand the women that do. I agree with you. I don't know how helpful that is, but I still think it's a really important thing to take note of. And in that way, it can be helpful. Because in its own way, it does raise awareness. Why are women feeling this way? Why are we saying these things? Why are we, why do you feel like there's these extreme things said against men? Well, there's a real reason, and that has to be acknowledged and looked at. And you're hearing the voice of a group of people that have not been heard about this issue.
Yeah. And I'll say one last thing. We as a society have gotten, sorry, I got distracted by a chat thing that referenced my name and it just like my eye zoomed to it. Anyways, we as a society have gotten really bad at doing things as communities. Like we don't care for each other the way that humanity has previously cared for each other. And so we do things very individualistically. And so even for you, Brandon, the reason I bring that up is if you feel that the conversations that are being had are upsetting to you because you're like, why am I catching the stray? I'm not the person who's
not even the me, to be honest.
Doing but if it's you're catching the strays, meaning you're being grouped in with this group of people that are being told, that they're being shitty. And that feels harmful to you. I would encourage you to look for spaces where you can act in the we. Like, how can you, and this is a hard thing to do, but how can you, as a person who's part of that community, take some responsibility in trying to help other people who are maybe on the shittier side of the fence? Or maybe it's a situation where you are supportive to the other women around you, like your sister, and you can say, hey, not everyone is going to be like that, but there's enough of them, and this is the way that we can make sure that you're safe. Because unfortunately, it is a safety issue, and it is an issue that is safety all the way up through the tiers of government where our rights are being on the chopping block. So, I don't know. I think I understand, and there has to be movement in that. Unfortunately, what creates really strong social movements is anger, a lot of the time, and getting people actually really motivated. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I want to say is when you're pointing out those issues, obviously there's no disagreement there. But I think you can recognize those issues and then not apply that to a larger group than it should be. Because I think the statistic about I forget the percentage, but a very large percentage of women being harassed, and then but the perpetrators are actually not a super large percentage of men, but they're repeat offenders, and so that's part of the problem there. But another thing is part of the reason I'm bringing this up is that if you're someone who cares about progressing things forward in certain things, and like I do a lot of work on like healthcare issues and big on getting corruption out of government and whatnot, and you want progress on these things, and there's people who totally would be on your side, but instead of, I guess, looking up at where the main, I guess, villains are, these gender wars are, I think, preposterous. They divide people unnecessarily, and it just doesn't work. And you alienate people. One thing that drives me crazy, people and like the election, they're like, we need a leftist Joe Rogan. I'm like, I remember in 2019 being super excited when he endorsed Bernie Sanders. You guys pushed him out. We have. So, and then when we're talking about solutions.
First of all, let's be really clear. Whatever Joe Rogan's done, he's made those choices. So you can't say you guys pushed him out. That's just like a really silly. He's made his choices, and I think I don't think we can keep doing this thing of like, look, we keep pushing people away. They're making these deliberate choices for whatever reasons. And if there's something they were looking for that they weren't finding on one side of the aisle, that's something maybe worth looking at, depending on what it is that they were looking for that they weren't getting. But real quick, I just want to point a couple of things out. So you said like it's not a large percentage. So there's a survey from 2018 where 43% of men admitted to engaging in sexual harassment. And so let's say, like, let me just put out a hypothetical for you. This is not really so much an argument, it's just to try to like paint a picture for you. Let's say I'm in a room with 100 dudes. 43% of them have made me feel uncomfortable by something they've said, done, or whatever. And to a point that even they would admit it qualifies as sexual harassment. So 43% of men have behaved that way. Let's say 1 or 2 or 3 of them, whichever number you feel comfortable with, has actually harmed me physically, whether that's with plain old violence or sexual violence. That's happened. And I am in this room and I start I'm like, hey, everybody, the people in this room have a fucking problem and they're doing this thing and it's harming me and I don't like it. And then let's say a man comes over to me and he's like, hey, you got a messaging problem here. We need to have compassion and be nice to these guys because, this is a messaging issue. And if you want them to change, then we have to be gentle. And some of these guys didn't do that thing. Well, I don't know which ones are going to and which ones aren't when you have a systemic issue like this, where 43% of the fruit is showing signs of being rotten, and I can't trust another bite forward. So that's my issue is the idea. Yeah, I'm almost done. The idea of trying to tone police the people that are actively experiencing the harm and violence that's occurring. I understand that you're saying like, I don't think it's a good strategic move. It doesn't really matter. It's happening, and that's the consequence. When you are harmed that way, you're not going to sit around and say, well, how can I present the best messaging as a victim so that, now it's my responsibility not only to not get harmed again, but also to keep you from having your feelings hurt. It's just, I hope you can kind of hear how that's coming off.
I hear what you're saying. One thing I want to quickly say is that 43% number did pique my interest. If you can send me it or share what it is, that'd be good, because when I looked it up, it went to a survey that said that the 43% was not saying men saying they did sexual harassment, is that they experienced it themselves. But regardless,
yeah,
on your
post
overall
it in
point,
I'll post it in the comments, but it's 43% of men admitted to engaging in behaviors that could be classified as sexual harassment, including making sexist comments, unwanted advances, or leering toward women.
Yeah, if you put it in the chat, then I'll look at it. But so none of what I'm saying is about people telling people don't talk about the issues because you're gonna make people feel bad. It's more of a don't overgeneralize. And then when you're talking about, this is one of the things I want to say, is when you're talking about solutions, and especially you want to bring people over to your side, I hear a lot of the solutions that I brought up, they're like, cry more, be more emotional, become empathetic. and it comes off as very patronizing and condescending. And it also is like almost not recognizing the other issues that people are facing and what's causing them to go in certain directions. And so just as it's important for people like myself to hear perspectives of people that are not like me, which you guys do a good job here. I think it's important that if you're talking about a big group of people, a half population, talk and listen to what they have to say too. And when I say talk and listen to what they have to say, I'm not saying like go to the annoying, terrible, misogynistic douchebag on who's saying hurtful stuff, or even the people who already agree with you, but like just like normal dudes. Because a lot of the stuff that people are struggling with, like, there are real issues, and they're often hand waved away as you don't have real issues. When there is, everyone's facing them: economic, with the problems with the internet, lack of purpose in society. I mean, there's a lot of things, and maybe I think everyone looking to each other more and not talking about entire groups as monoliths is a way to go forward, and then looking at the real issues that are affecting us.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think what's important to realize, and I think what is going to be what drives this forward, is it is ultimately the responsibility of the responsibility cannot fall only on women who are already in a situation where their literal physical safety is at risk, to be the ones to lead that movement. Like that has to be something. It's a society thing. Yeah,
there are issues in society that are affecting groups that we need to address.
Yeah, but it primarily has to be something where the men take responsibility for the other men in the group to be able to. You guys have to infiltrate your own group, because the whole thing is those. Again, I'm going to just say shitty men because I don't know how else to describe them. The shitty men aren't listening to women anyway. So it's really what you're calling about and what you're expressing actually is more of like a call to action to you, because men are going to have to start leading this movement, because they're not listening to us, and more times than not they're harassing us and threatening our lives. And so while I agree that a gender war is not going to progress, and I don't think that creating content that is fuck all men and we need to 4B movement, whatever, I don't think that's the answer, and I will stay firm on that. I have stayed firm on that. It also has to be something where the actual movement, I think, has to come from other men. We can't be responsible for it. So I would say...
I don't think anyone, or there are people saying it, but I'm not saying that it is. But part of the thing also is that, what I'm trying to say, and I don't think I've gotten it across super clearly, is I don't think these issues are just like a little like social cultural problem that people in their groups need to get their act together. I think there are, there's always going to be messed up people, but like there's societal level things that need to be addressed, and issues that when aren't addressed cause people to do terrible things, and we need to listen to those concerns and address them, and instead of being like, you do your own thing, take care of your own issues, because in let's say like in a political sense, like if you want people to come over and not be like a Trumper, well, you're going to have to reach out to them and be like, not just like be on my side, because don't be terrible to other people from my perspective. It's like, no, this is what I'm offering you, and this is how I actually care about you, not just, and this is what I'm going to address your problems. I think that's politics 101, and we need to really address these societal issues. It's less of like a cultural social thing to me, where it's like groups regulate your own, which to a certain degree, of course, that is. Like if there's this asshole next to me, I'm going to call him out. But we need to sometimes look more at the macro instead of like the micro.
I agree,
unfortunately, we have to do both so that we can stay alive.
Yeah.
If one out of every 5 apples I've eaten, I totally agree. That's why we have this show. That's why we work for The Line. because we specifically want to work on a more macro level. But then in one-on-one situations where we're going to have a conversation about sexism or whatever, we're going to call it like it is, and we're going to say when poor behavior is poor behavior. When this whole idea of like, well, you can't say all men. Sure, technically, when we get into an actual conversation, I'm not saying all men, but for women to act as though it is all men is something we have to do to stay alive and to not be harmed. And so that is the part that I don't think a lot of men are understanding in this conversation, is that it's our, as Alyssa said, it's our safety that is at risk. So that's why there is a generalization that has to happen. For example, I love snakes. I used to have a pet snake. If I'm out on a hike in Tennessee and I see a snake, my first instinct is to get the fuck away from it. And generally, I don't have the time or interest to figure out if it's a safe snake or not. I'm just moving on my way. So it's very similar. Sure, most of the snakes I come across are not venomous. And even the ones that are, who knows which one is going to actually bite me. I have to treat it like what it is and move on. So that's the micro level. I understand what you're saying on a macro level, which is why I'm not advocating for us to go kill all snakes because some of them might be venomous or something. I agree with you. I'm a leftist. I think that we need to feed people and, shelter people and educate people, and that will solve so many problems, if not all of them. But the conversation, when we do get down to, when we take it down from the level of, okay, what does humanity need? Now, what about men? What about women? What about anybody in between? We have to call things what they are. And I understand that that's hard to hear as the person that's in this group of dudes that are doing shitty things. But like Alyssa said, that's a call to action to the men in that group. If you don't want to be, this is like the Christians that sometimes call us and they're saying, well, why do you act like Christians are terrible? I don't think all Christians are terrible. Most of my friends and family are Christians and they're lovely and I enjoy them and everything's fine. If you're worried about the reputation of Christianity, if you're worried about the reputation of men, that is an inside job fully. And I think that's my main point at the end of all of this.
I agree with what you were completely agree with what you were saying about the actions in terms of, because I would give this advice to my sister if she's out there. I'm like, yeah, don't stay away from certain people, be cautious. Make sure, you get your phone or whatnot. All these types of things. Actions, completely agree. It's the messaging when you're talking about issues. And there's it's what I said at the beginning, a lumping in of a lot of people who didn't create the societal issues that you call out, who don't partake in it, but are somewhat lazily thrown in there. And that turns, even if you think it's understandable why people do that, it's like, if the effect of that, just strategically, forget other parts of it, strategically, if the effect of that is that is that they're going away from you, and then on the opposite side, then if you want to improve things, you have to change it, because otherwise you'll stand on a understandable moral position that fails. I just bring people together. The Bernie message. All is one. Yeah,
I love Bernie. I agree with that, with what Bernie said about all of that. But it's not my job to, although you see Alyssa and I do it all the time, we're really kind and courteous up to a certain point with some of the worst people I have ever spoken to in my life on these calls. Like just saying really ridiculous, appalling stuff. And we take it up to a certain point and then, we'll call it what it is. But so it's not like I even have skin. It's not like I'm even needing to defend, again, I'm not somebody that sits around here saying all these generalizations. If anything, I think we're really nuanced, especially on chewed gum. However, I do feel really defensive of people that are like that. And I don't think it's up to us to dictate how victims of these issues express what's happened to them and how they feel about it moving forward. If you think that being kind of like gentle parenting men through this is the way to do it, and that's how you want to, if you have to talk so carefully and not hurt a man's feelings in order to get him to want to continue voting.
I think you're misunderstanding
if you want to say things a certain way to make sure he keeps voting for the better interests of all instead of just himself, I don't know that I'm, as an individual, the person to help that individual either, nor do I have that much interest in it. If they're so easily swayed that, you know, me saying, yeah, well, men do blah, 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 is enough to make them be like, oh, that's just so, I can't stand being generalized. And like, you're being disgusted with members of your own gender. And so that's the part where it's like, how is that women's responsibility to make you feel better about that position? It's up to those men to stop being so shitty, and you guys have to figure that out. And here we are having these conversations, and I think that's how Alyssa and I don't want to speak for her, but I think that's how Alyssa and I show up in this space, is wanting to have these conversations and wanting to bring nuance. And most of our viewers are men, and we're really appreciative of the support and the calls that we get in. Most of the calls are men. So that kind of shows our track record, and that obviously we're not like these man-hating, like, fuck everybody. It's the systems, it's the institutions, and it sounds like we all three agree on that. I don't agree with the idea, still, at the end of this call, I still don't agree with the idea of tone policing how other women, or just people in general, choose to discuss this. And if they need to generalize, if they... You know, I don't have a good argument against them doing that, other than to say strategy. And at the end of the day, the strategy should be back on the people that are being impacted by it, which is apparently you, because it's bothering you that men are being generalized and all of that. So that's up to you guys. Like I said, it's an inside job. I don't know, Alyssa, if you have any final thoughts.
Well, so Brandon, I try really hard to lead with the ideology of being kind to people, even when they are being disgusting to me. And I'll be honest, I have had very little success with it. I'm going to continue to do it because, you know, to the best of my ability. But because I think it is important for anybody who can, like, then do that. I get comments on my Instagram pretty regularly that are calling me every name in the book, and I will reply in kind and say, you know, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I would like to be able to learn more about what made you leave a comment like that, or whatever it is. And I pretty consistently will get a comment back that will be something, again, to the effect of, I don't need to explain anything to you, whore. Like, it's, you know,
yeah,
so it's tough, because while I see some of your perspective in that, you know, a fist and a fist is not going to create any kindness there. It's also, these are people who don't care what we have to say when we're being compassionate, and seem to care a lot more when we are taking away access to us. So that gives us a lot of information. And I think truly, like, if you feel very strongly about this, I would encourage you to think of ways where you can create impact. And I mean that seriously. Like, I mean that fully seriously. This could be like a big moment for who you are in the community of men around you. Like, think of ways where you can create impact, because we are trying, and it's not making much of a difference for the people who are determined to be crappy to us.
Yeah. Can I say a final thing? Because I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to. Can I?
Sure. And then we're wrapping the show. So go ahead.
Yeah. The final thing is, actually, I think you're being even nicer than I would advocate. I not think I'm saying at all is to say be nice to people who are being assholes to you. Is that what I'm saying? I also don't think I'm saying coddle people. I think it's more of instead of coddling, it's more accuracy. And not trying to convince the people who are just like to be nice and coddle people who are being terrible to you. But there are a boatloads of people who aren't necessarily those awful people who voted or in other ways are in a camp that you're not in and we think are antithetical to progress, that aren't being reached out to, who aren't being heard and feel like they're being attacked, and sometimes they just legitimately are. And the way to reach out to them is to better message. You can still rail against all the issues that legitimately people face, like women face, and not do it in a way where you're looping those people in and you can bring them in. That's what I'm saying. I hope I'm clear now that I'm not advocating for coddling assholes.
No,
you can punch them in the face.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, that like it's really the avoiding the like all men language. I get that. And if what we're talking about doesn't apply to you, then we're not talking to you. You know what I mean? If I'm saying that
exactly.
men are threatening the safety of women, and I'm not, and you know that you don't do that, I'm not talking to you. You know?
It's very similar to when my Black friends talk about white Americans and they'll talk about the systemic issues. And I know that I didn't literally personally enslave their family members. However, I also understand my position in all of this systemically. That's the word I'm looking for. And so I think that's what it comes down to. Alyssa, that was right on. Like, if the shoe doesn't fit, then you don't have to wear it. That's fine. We're not talking about you. That's my last thing to that.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I just want to say I really appreciate not only you taking my call, but I don't know how long the conversation went, but it went longer than I thought it would. So I appreciate
36 minutes.
A lot.
Yeah, you're welcome to call back. We appreciate the dialogue, the back and forth, and we can talk more.
Yeah, and if you have good ideas in the future, please call back. And also, I'm serious. If you really, really put some thought behind how you can create impact, because if it's important to you, then it's something that you can actually create change with. And we need as many people as we can who have your mindset of we can create change, perhaps. So noodle on it. And
I'm trying. Right now it's protecting Medicaid. That's the work I'm doing. We're trying.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Well, thank you so much
thanks
for
so much
calling.
for calling, Brandon.
We appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. That was.
Shall we get through these?
Yeah. Let's do it. I was going to say that was like the craziest call to end on, because I know I always upset people when I say that. When I share.
I think that I love those conversations when we all have some varying nuance in our different things that we think, and I think there's a lot more overlap than anything else. Probably we're just have different ideas of how to get there. So I love you.
All right,
let's get through these. Get to bed.
$5. Oh, we're back. Okay,
there we go.
There we go.
$5 from Sheridan Bernasconi. Happy belated birthday promise. Thank you so much. Thanks.
$5 from Monkey, a typewriter. I feel like if the South is willing to give up their porn for the sake of their guns, for the sake of their guns, a xenophobia, we've truly gone beyond the bounds of understanding. I would say so.
We're going to see more of that stuff. $10 Canadian from Rosie Raid. This is why the only porn I consume has werewolves and Mothmen in it, because you can't be unethical against something that isn't real. Monster fuckers unite.
I love it.
I think, isn't that like what they say most, like the whole Beauty and the Beast thing? Women are really into the fantasies of monsters and all that. Personally, I don't think bestiality is the right. Well, I guess maybe that's the word. I don't know. That's just not been my flavor personally, but no judgment to anybody it is.
And there's a lot of really creative adult content in that whole realm. It's very fun.
Very true.
$5 from Alyssa Wynn. Elon Musk is like Walt Disney without Roy to keep him grounded in reality, and without the sense to listen to others and realize other people might know more than him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Elon Musk just sucks.
Agreed. $10 from Heathen Granny. It's funny how MAGA say they worship Jesus, but never follow any of Jesus' teachings at all, and yet they worship the orange nugget and say that he's like Jesus, and I'm like sitting here laughing. Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy happening there. I think that the MAGA Christians are thrilled to be able to replace Jesus because that standard for them was not working. It was causing them to have to progress. We were seeing a lot of progress pre-MAGA, and I think this was a good way for them to get to go back on a lot of that. Anyways, that's my thoughts.
$5 from Monkey a Typewriter. I think the value of Dave being a feminist is huge. I'm a soft lefty with a ponytail, but hearing that from a more manly fellow is huge. Great call. I didn't know you had a ponytail. Wow, I'm like getting small little pieces of what you look like, which is so funny.
$5 from Relevant Epsilon. Mastodon, think Twitter, PixelFed, Instagram, and other Fediverse social media instances, not sexy as B-Sky, etc., but run by individual people, not companies. Awesome. Those are, I'll have to look into those. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Although the last thing I want is more social media. I would love to be off social media in a year or two. Like, I'd like somebody else to run. Like, I'll still make content, but I would like somebody else to run everything. I would like to not know what's happening on social media. That's a dream. But also, I hope that it's by choice, not because I'm getting censored by the government. So,
right. Yeah, heard that. $5 from Moira Bannister. The Line has a podcast, and it has my 3 favorite hosts. Squee! Yay! I'm so excited.
Same. £5 from Sean Isherwood. For D greater than 10 in D-dimensional space, D-dimensional sphere packing of any D-dimensional cube, C can leave gaps in C bigger that C. I'm going to take your word for that.
I'm following. Yeah.
5 minutes past my bedtime, my brain is gone.
$5 from SJL. Rather than the whoever owns the line needs to fire Jimmy meme, we should start a Promise and Alyssa need to fire Jimmy one. Jimmy would fire himself, I think, if he could. But
he would love to do that. Yeah, I'm trying to encourage the opposite.
I know. I think the internet would be very sad without him.
$20 from my dude Leaky Tiki. Just sending a little love. Curious if you know why Yahweh had it in for Ashira. Keep up the great work. Yahweh seemed to have it in for anybody other than himself. So probably just because a dude came up with that character. And that kept things exciting.
Thank you for the support.
Yes.
$5 from Cade Moore. That's not how you say that name, but I don't know how to say it, so I'll look it up after I read this. I adore this hosting group. Hashtag Team Feel Good. But I'd love to see Shannon Q tear hostile guests a new asshole and Erica explain how the new hole evolved. Yeah, that seems to be, that's the request.
We'll put in a word for that. $5 from Alyssa Wynn. People are more confident when they wear red. 3 words. He's dead, Jimmy. Hashtag go fuck yourself. Hashtag Star Trek. Hashtag Insane Expendable. Hashtag nameless background characters. Hashtag red shirts. Thanks, that's Alyssa.
Funny. One of the comments in the chat is Jimmy and himself have had a falling out. And that's hilarious and very true.
We have to tell him that. He'll think that's really funny.
Yeah.
He'll say something about how, like, we never had a falling in or something.
Yeah, exactly. Literally that. $10 from Bosco. You guys rule. Just wanted to send my thanks. I was once a teacher for Christianity. All of you have helped so much on getting me out of the lunacy and Christian nationalism. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, that means so much to hear. Proud of you.
Yeah, it does.
$5 from Monkey a Typewriter. I think Brandon has a number of valid points, but I think it's important to remember that men are generally not in physical danger from patriarchy.
Right. I also want to be clear that I'm not suggesting that everyone just be delusionally nice to all men. Like, and there were a lot of comments in the chat that were like, saying that I'm disregarding people's safety. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is content that we create that is contributing to like the tornado vortex of other content that is fuck all men doesn't help. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everyone else has to be nice to men, and I'm not saying that you should disregard your safety. Just to be so clear. That's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we were
that.
talking about is kind of our personal value and what we do, and it's not us dictating what other people should do. I obviously have my own thoughts and my own feelings about it too. I was just hosting with Matt and got death threats from somebody trying to debate morality with me. And I was, as you guys know, really calm, cool, whatever. And still got death threats. So it's like, how much does it really help one way or the other? And that's why it comes down to we have to do what each of us as individuals can live with. And I just feel defensive over anybody who wants to be different than that. So obviously we're not advocating for anybody to give up their personal safety or even their own voice. We're also not advocating to go like just take out all men and be like, let's extinguish you all. So, you know, there's a nuance happening here.
For sure. For sure.
Anyways. Is this me? $10 from Heathen Granny. The orange nugget is the Lord and Savior of the incels since it was mostly incel white men who voted for him. Men really think that by taking away our rights will get us to talk to them. Yeah, it's really wild.
Yeah, that makes no fucking sense. $5 from Charlotte. Thank you, Promise. Thank you, Alyssa. Love y'all. Love what y'all do through and through. Thank you, Charlotte.
Aww. Thanks, Charlotte. $5 from Skeptoidius. Has anyone noticed Promise looks an awful lot like Eve? Must be twins, or maybe she got eaten by the Tooth Bunny and had to be replaced by a clone. You got me. That's what happened. I'm just a clone.
$5 from Melissa Wynn. I don't see it. Skep, Eve, and Promise are as different as Nick Locarno and Tom Paris. Save Star Trek Lower Decks. I don't know.
There must have been a discussion that we didn't know about. I have to tell you guys, though, if we're talking about anything to do with, maybe y'all were, maybe you weren't, about how we look, Alyssa looks so much like my sisters. So I just have decided that she's an honorary sister with all of us.
Yeah.
Whether she wants it or not. So if that's what's being discussed, I see that. And I sent you the picture of my sisters, and you agree. Like, you could have like sat on that couch with all of us, and everyone would have been like, "Yeah,
100%.
That's the fifth sister for sure."
I legitimately look more like your sisters than I look like my sister. Swear.
You look more like my sisters than I look like my sisters. So there's like there's four of us, and like some of us look more like there's a spectrum, and you definitely fit in on that spectrum of how we all look.
100%. I'm literally, you could sit me out, you could put everyone in like who looks most like each other. I could fit somewhere on that scale.
You're somewhere in the middle too.
Yeah. I love it. $5 from RCN or Deshane? I don't know. Alyssa, I love you to hell and back. I value your perspective, but I can't bring myself to do what you do. I'm totally #Team Promise on this topic. That's totally fine. I understand my path is a little psycho, and I get that. And it's not for everyone. And I don't know why I feel so like able to do it sometimes. There are other times where I legitimately can't look at my comments because they're so nasty. But, you know.
But I want to point out,
for different folks.
I think in practice, you and I are very similar to how this plays out. Like everybody just got to hear my perspective and like how I say it and yours and how you say it. But I think in practice, it comes out almost the same. If anything, I remember sometimes I've seen like something you've posted. I've been like, "Ooh, that was like real spicy about men," like something I wouldn't have even felt. So it's really funny to hear some pushback against what you've said. Because I just have a different perspective. Like, definitely don't think of you as like, I don't know what people are saying in the comments because I still don't know how to read chat while we're doing this. But but I think of you as being very strong and very willing to say things and to generalize when helpful and all of that. So I don't know. It's interesting, all of this. To me, we're like more aligned than it's probably coming across. But that's good. I think it's good for people to hear the conversations and where we land and all of that.
100%. 100%. 100%. Also, Alyssa said that those characters in Star Trek are played by the same actor.
Oh,
which is really funny.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Okay. That would have been good for us to know. Is this me? $4.99 from Philip Kelly.
Yeah.
Brandon, how can we come together if you're still punching us in the D? Yep.
Yeah.
Not Dylan D. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to express is like when it's real things happening right now, we have to address it as it is. And I'm sorry that that's difficult to hear. And I'm sorry that you don't want to be lumped in with a bad apple. But when there's always a bad apple in the bunch, then I'm not really going to be like worrying that much about apples. I'm going to be worrying about how I'm going to operate around said apples. So
yeah,
that is making my metaphors are getting worse and worse as the show progresses. But
I know.
I'm doing my best.
This is like the latest we've gone in a really long time. But also, this is why for people like Brandon, I really, it's hard to also accept that like feedback from him and then also not see action. Not that like it's him in particular, like I don't know what he does in his day-to-day life, but then don't, and this is going to sound like combative, but don't call in this show with a complaint like that and then expect us to not also ask what you're doing about it. Because like that, then you're like really putting the onus on like us as women or whatever, people with platforms and whatever. And like, they're not fucking listening to us. And I'm going to keep trying, but they're not. So.
Yeah. Well, he's busy with Medicare or whatever he said. So,
Yeah, which I appreciate, yeah, sure.
I'm kidding, but I agree with you. Like that's the other thing is if you're not, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is people telling me how to do my job when it comes to anything, if they don't have anything to do with it. For example, somebody with an Instagram following of 5 that barely knows how to use Instagram, which also I barely know how to use Instagram, telling me like, I wish you'd post your videos more like this with this, this, and this. And I'm like, listen, I have been doing this for 3 years now. You have never done this. You've never operated, as far as I know, like on a scale like this. So when people start saying or telling like, hey, ladies, this is what you need to do if you want those guys that are harming you to listen to you better. It's like, I don't know how interested I am in that. Some people are, and that's good for them. And I, do things the way they do it. But it sounds like a you problem. Anyways.
Right. 100%. 100%. Is this me or you?
I don't know. $5 from Charlotte. J. John Child says, it is not women's jobs to be emotionally responsible for men. Full stop. Coincidentally, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah,
also,
I think that's
even as it is now, I know so many women in my life who have had to take on the emotional burden of men because they're not doing it. And then we have to do it. So $5 from Jolene. Promise I completed the suspension performance this weekend and it went wonderfully. I have a YouTube link I can put in the chat of the Kata song part. Yes! Put it in the chat.
Okay. Please put it in the chat. Alyssa,
I'll find it.
Send it to me. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So sad. I don't know how to do anything.
Can't wait
That's
to
so
see.
Cool. Thank you. $5 from.
Oh yeah, no, you go ahead.
Oh, was that okay? From Art House Films. Are the hateful comments more about religion or about feminism? Are you talking about the comments that we get? Because it's across the board for me. I get them about everything.
I don't
Essentially,
really get them.
Like whatever I talk about, I get hate. I think the real question should be who leaves the hate most often. It is almost always men.
Yeah.
Like where I can go to their Facebook, I can see their wife and kids, and I can see their profile. It is almost always men that are saying the hateful things. And that's what's interesting to me, more so than what it is they're upset about.
Yeah, agreed. $5 from Monkey, a typewriter. Men, you're being treated like you're a threat, like with a broomstick. You treat them all like they're loaded until you check the breech and still after.
Boomstick, a gun.
Oh, boomstick. I was like, broomstick? Why are you checking out broomsticks? I was confused. I'm tired, guys.
Thank you,
Oh,
Morgan.
yeah. Thank you, Morgan. A Morgan who's also probably exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all on struggle bus, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Will. Jolene, I want that link of the hanging show.
$10 from Roger Wenzel. Refreshing show. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Roger. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you, Roger.
Good night, Alyssa. Oh, on that note, thanks everybody so much for being here with us tonight. We will be back the week after next, although Chewed Gum will still be here, and it'll be amazing. Some great guests. We'll announce those, but that's all I got. Alyssa?
That's all I got. I'm going the heck to bed. I love you guys. And I'm excited to talk to you guys next. And thank you, Morgan, and all of our screeners and all of our mods and our patrons and podcast January 20th. Oh my God, you'll be able to listen to the podcast before you see Eve and I back for the live show, I think, right?
That's true. So you don't have to miss us. You still get to hang out with us next week. It just won't be live.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Morgan.
Good night, everyone.
Love you. Thank you to our mods and screeners. They're all the best.
We love you.